Without further ado, let's get to our last talk of the day. I'd like to welcome to the stage Thomas and Christoph from baseVISION. baseVISION is one of our new sponsors this year, so thank you very much to them for joining Swiss Cyberstorm's repertoire of wonderful partners. And they'll be talking about emerging threats, turning from the hunter to the hunted. So round of applause, please, for baseVISION and Christoph and Thomas.
Thank you. So why I'm on stage? I have just a small part. I'm talking about emerging threats. Then I will hand over to Chris, who will do more the technical talk about how we do this within our service. So it will be focused on the Microsoft technology, so how we use Defender and Sentinel to change the game at the end. So first of all, what we see at our customers is a lot of complexity within our environments. And most of the attacks which happen are so simple. So what do I mean with that one? Customers often try to implement so many security into their environments, but they forget to make it efficient and simple, so it's unmanaged. So on the defending side, we should keep a system as simple as possible. Only then we can also defend it. And the attackers are doing the same. Just a few examples. We have here two cables. What is the difference? Do you know it? You can see it. Both are working USB-C cables. One has a computer built in. I can connect to it via Wi-Fi, via web page. I can play keystrokes to it. I can remotely control what he is doing. So simple. I can even record your keystrokes if you type something. So it's a built-in keylogger. Buy it for $70. It's simple for attackers. I buy a virus. I can buy a USB stick. I can just drop that to one of your employees. He sticks it in and it just builds a remote connection, for example. So it's really simple for attackers, and that works nearly everywhere. But our security talks with customers is most often about how can we do this, talk about this use case. So we have always the enterprise security tries to bring more complexity within the environment to detect every special thing. And my opinion is strongly that we have to believe that big vendors like Microsoft can bring us a lot of advantage because they detect a lot of these things built in. And then we can focus on specific things which are specific to our environments. So that's my introduction. And I would hand over now to Chris, who will tell you how you can use these security systems to change the game. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and hello everyone. So the time budget is around 20 minutes. I fly over a little bit higher over the topic. My name is Christoph. I work as a security analyst at the baseVISION in the SOC, Security Operations Center. I do have some touch points with Microsoft. What I'd like to outline in my session or in our session today is really what kind of leftovers do we see when it's too late? So when an incident or an attack is going on or has happened already, then is it really over already? And what we do in terms of try to turn the table to really hunt for threats, hunt for bad actors, what are kind of possibilities we have. These are three topics I like to fly over. Let me know if there are questions. Happy to answer them at the end of the session. So let's start. When it's too late, what do we see? Usually we see a lot of alerts. It's fine. Customers, they have deployed security products. They have deployed everything. The alerts queue is filling up. Who is checking these alerts? Maybe someone, maybe one with 50% engagement, whatever. Usually what we see is we see a full alerts queue, and this is the discipline of the SOC, of course, to really go and hunt down what happened. We see a lot of entities. So a lot of entities might be or are involved in ongoing threats. So, and there it is really key to, okay, you have the product, you have licensed any security solution, but how do you approach an incident? How do you approach an attack that has happened? So what we have the situation of during an incident. So that's the first I'd like to outline. How do we detect in terms of detection? What is important in this part? So during an incident, our responsibility is it to really check, okay, what are the kind of patterns, what kind of indicators do we see related to the incident? Whereas on the customer side, the customer is usually busy with the prioritization of what kind of workloads do we bring live again, what assets are impacted, what identities are impacted. So a lot of different questions coming up from a SOC perspective or a security analyst's perspective. What we see, we see a very, very nasty, crowded environment. We see a lot of alerts. We see a lot of entities involved. So our base discipline here in the detection phase is look for patient zero. Where has it started? Which identities are involved? Which entities are involved? So which hosts, for example, IP addresses. So we do summarize single entities in the so-called IOCs, indicators of compromise. These are indicators like file hashes, IP addresses, whatever, involved in threats, in attacks, and in incidents. What we do, we search for the patient zero, so where it all began. So we have an option to outline executables, file hashes, whatever. Furthermore, what we do, and this is the tricky part, is to really search for patterns. So which process created which files, what are hash values involved, to really outline how did the attack start, how did it evolve, and how did it laterally or horizontally move to other entities which are involved in the incident. So that's the key. Prior one, really identity and hosts. We need to know which hosts, which entities are affected. Secondly, we do need to see, okay, what are IOCs related? Like what are file hashes, files, etc. How did the attack evolve? And third one is like patterns. Do we see specific patterns? So this process created this file, dropped this file on host, for example, or this user identity has recorded sign-ins from this location, etc., and then laterally moved to others location. So what we search here, out of all the alerts and out of all the information that is provided from the security tools, we search for patterns. We search for repeating patterns, because what we need to do is we need to build up as fast as possible kind of thesis. So what has happened? But furthermore, it's important to confirm this thesis. Because if we would go into the communication part with the customer and communicate, hey, this host has an issue, there it all began, or this file hash is involved in the malicious activities, the customer, they have actions. So based on our investigation, based on our detections, the customer will perform reactions, responses. So this is very important, an important part to really outline what is the thesis and confirm this thesis prior to reporting and communication to the customer. Because what is baseVISION doing? The SOC is acting as a SOC provider, so it's a managed service to our customers. And on the customer side, there might be emergency processes being triggered based on our reporting. So this is a very, very important part to confirm the thesis, to confirm the activities we detected. Second question, is it over already? That's a good question. I mean, just because files get remediated or accounts get blocked, whatever, the question is it over already? And after an incident, the customer is busy with restoring the full business operations. we are busy from a SOC, we are busy with detections. So what we do is we write detections, we get detections from community, public repositories and stuff like that. So what is our task is to really detect further malicious, potentially malicious activities. Therefore, we have tools, and I like tools to some extent. What we have is our Microsoft Sentinel. This is the SIEM. And there are Microsoft Defender Suite. You can license this stuff and no problem at all. So the goal here is, and that's the beauty of this beast, I tried to draw here a little bit. The beauty is we can have signals from other platforms included to our Sentinel, to our SIEM solution. So we might have signals from other platforms. We might have signals even for workloads running outside of Azure, like AWS, GCP, etc. So we can collect these signals, and based on these signals, which are streamed to Defender or directly to the SIEM Microsoft Sentinel, based on these signals, we can start with the detection. So we can analyze these signals. Do we see IOCs? Do we see patterns and stuff like that? And that's the beauty of the implementation. Furthermore, I like to outline the external sources. So detection is about, okay, frankly speaking, it's very community driven. So we have a 0-day, we have a vulnerability. How is it exploited? Often we see something from within the SOC, but most of the time we see external. It's coming from the community. Hey, these might be indicators of a compromise. So the beauty here is that we can easily integrate these kind of community documented IOCs or patterns. For example, publicly available GitHub repositories or storage accounts, whatever. We can include this into our detection. So what I like to focus on when it comes to detection, I like to focus on the analytic rules hunting queries and the whole Microsoft stuff we have. These are the tools we have. So first, when it comes to detection, what we write, looking for IOCs, looking for malicious patterns, we have analytic rules. So what we can do with analytic rules is we can schedule these. They are running on a schedule as I just outlined. It's really searching with KQL, that's like SQL, but for guys like me, so I understand and I can write queries. So it's like KQL, it's easy language to gather, to crawl into big data, looking for specific patterns or IOCs, compare data, compare event data we have just available from all the other workloads. So here, running the analytic rules provide on a schedule, here we're really able to kind of monitor the customer, what is going on. Do we see repeated attack patterns? And also based on the analytic rules, if there's a hit, if there's a match, we can trigger some kind of automation like notifications or isolation of hosts or whatever, you name it. So the second one I'd like to outline, and this is also something we can implement in Microsoft Sentinel in the SIEM, is our hunting queries. So for hunting queries, and this will be the last part of the presentation where we use hunting queries. Hunting queries, they really look for use cases. You hunt for possible threats, for activities which might be which might be an issue, might be malicious, but we're not sure. I'll come to that in the last section. And then, of course, for the time being, as we're not talking about this possible 0-day anymore. All the Microsoft detection with machine learning, with pattern updates, etc. All the detection is being improved by Microsoft, so we get the out-of-the-box alerts. But from a SOC perspective, it's extremely useful and helpful to have own tools to write detections, to look for patterns and IOC we've just outlined and confirmed in our thesis. This is extremely helpful. So looking at the detection itself, basically, and this is very high level, this is a slide that fits in a 20-minute presentation, so not that many details. Basically what we have events from all different sources. So what we do is we write the detection for patterns or IOCs. And the goal is, if we have a hit, if we see something, we have it structured and summarized within security incidents. And these are the incidents we analyze. We involve possibly the customer. So if we have a detection after a security incident or after an attack, we are really able to, we know the use case, we know the circumstances, and we are really able to inform the customer, hey, this is going on other workloads. So it might evolve again, it might start again. This is what we've seen. So that's the detection part. How do we proceed, and how are we able to really turn the table? So what are activities behind that? The main goal here is we have some kind of feedback loop. That means we have had an incident, so we've seen, okay, these are like IOCs, patterns from the community globally, Twitter, whatever. There are sources where more and more details around the attack pattern is known. So we have this kind of feedback loop here. Also internally, lessons learned. Maybe some advised changes. So based on the attack, we advise the customer to fully enroll MFA, whatever, review exclusions, etc. So these are changes that are implemented on the customer side. But yeah, right after an incident is before an incident. Before an incident, the goal is, and this is why we are really trying to turn the table, is we want to we want to limit the impact on the business and on the customer for any future malicious activities. So the goal here is to prevent the attacks at the earliest stage. That means, you'll see that in the next slide, that means from alert 1, if one alert or incident is triggered, that we can break it. We can break the chain of activities, the malicious activities. And that's mainly the goal of the hunting, the advanced hunting, threat hunting as well. Advanced hunting, the goal there is to have some kind of thesis. So let's assume breach, and we search for the breach. We search for the activities. And of course, hygiene, how is it announced in English? I don't know. Hygiene, you all know what I mean. Huh? Identify assets, identify configuration gaps customer has. And this is where you have time here. So it's not no stormy weather there. So go after assets that are not managed, go after misconfigured systems, identities in the famous exclusion lists, whatever. This is where we have the trigger to really turn the table. So that means looking at the attack, we want to go, and this is the main goal of the hunting, of the advanced hunting discipline. If we are here, we want to identify this. And we don't want to let other alerts be generated. We don't want to have incidents and malicious activities evolve and proceed further. So that's the main goal of the proactive threat hunting, to really, to really see from the beginning, from alert 1, to really break the chain. So what we're going to do, and I've been talking about this earlier, we search for IOCs, of course, to prevent activities. So our researches, day-by-day communication within community, etc., gives us a big bunch of IOCs and possible malicious pattern. So what we really want to do is, in a proactive approach, look for these IOCs or look for patterns which are related to malicious events. Based on the proactive threat hunting approach, we state assume breach, for example, and we really look, okay, do we see these kind of patterns? like if the customer claims to disable USB download of files to USB devices. Okay, what's the reality? Do we see USB devices connected in customer environment? Do we have this famous, okay, it's everyone except you, except developers? So this is really also some kind of like compliance. So your customer might have regulations, might have security configurations, but are they applied on every host? So what's the coverage there? Also based on threat intel data we have, or we see, so this is like data where it's outlined, okay, that might be a pattern or that might be activities. So we get these activities and we actively search for them. So that's a goal, a big goal. And the other one is really searching for gaps, as I outlined earlier. Do we have vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities? How are identities behaving in terms of what are kind of activities? Do we see strange activities for identities? And this is something, while not having a breach or an incident, look for it. Look for these patterns. Look what fits. And this is an activity which is extremely helpful, because then if you have kind of signs that, let's have an example of configuration. Local administrator, built-in administrator account is disabled on all our hosts. So that's what customer states in the security policy. Technically, it might be implemented, yeah. But do we see sign-ins on the default local administrator? Because there we know the username, we know the ID of the local default administrator. So it's only a question of password guessing. So that's here really to look for gaps and warn the customer, hey, what you state, your statement doesn't comply with the reality. So this is very important for us, and it's also a part of the whole SOC discipline, to search for stuff, search for patterns, search for configuration if the configuration complies with the reality. So this is what I'd like to outline here in the goals. Yeah, the detection and the disruption. And disruption of sophisticated attacks, that means that either 0 days are used or highly sophisticated patterns are used. So a lot of combination, from a combination point of view, a lot of activities are exactly streamlined in order to gain access or to compromise a host or an account. So this is very sophisticated level, but there it's always one small gap, most of the time, always one small gap in the configuration, in an identity behavior, in a vulnerability, hosts not being patched, etc. So that's the goal to have. And if I can outline here some kind of tactics, the goal here of the proactive approach is really to stop even during the reconnaissance or afterwards, to even identify, are my hosts, my public-facing hosts, are they scanned? What happens at the moment and for the moment? So that's the goal, to not let it run until it's too late, until we have exfiltration of data, ransomware being executed, whatever, to really stop it or identify it here at least, and have all the countermeasures in place in order to stop the attack and any other malicious activities. So that's it from my side. And I hand over to Thomas for the final words.
Yeah, so you saw what all is possible with Microsoft technologies. I mean, there is a lot of functionality available, but it needs somebody who can operate it. And that's really a specialized job function. But what we can see in the past 3 to 5 years is the evolvement of Microsoft. I mean, they invest $4 billion each year in security. Just last week, the new Gartner report was released, where Sentinel is in the upper right corner. I mean, a few years ago, there was no Sentinel, there were just other products. So we really saw this evolvement. And the cool thing is really the coverage. We can cover from the email which are coming into our environment, endpoints, identities, other clouds, and all built in. They have so many sensors. Is it good? Yeah. They bought a lot of products. But yes, it's for customers we see they are really fast in having a broad coverage of what they can collect as data, which then helps to detect and also proactively hunt. So I think the integration is really beneficial of these tools. And yeah, Microsoft as a security provider and also as threat experts, I mean, we always can also escalate something to Microsoft, and then we have a team of hundreds of security experts also in the back end. And that's, I think, also something which is really unique. And it helps us to have an efficient operation within our team because we have so many analytics provided directly from Microsoft. So all the basic functionality is already available. And that's really beneficial for all customers. So we can focus on the thing which is really special for a specific customer. So with that, we can go directly to the questions, I think.
Wonderful. Any questions for Chris and Tom? Just jump up here beside you. Yeah, that's right. Well, round of applause first off for Chris and Tom from baseVISION.